You will hopefully remember from your homework that the most important thing in choosing a glaze for your ceramic piece is to make sure that you are using a glaze which is the same cone and is compatible with the clay body. If you were to look above the glaze shelves, you will find that it tells you what glazes are where. Okay? Now, our shelves are divided with a ribbon that goes from ceiling down across the shelves. Everything to the right side of that ribbon is stoneware. Everything to the left side is earthenware. Just remember, left is low fire. In the middle area are the underglazes. If you remember the underglazes that we used those on our little pots in ceramic 1, the pinch pots, where we did sgraffito carving. If I show you this, that was underglaze. Those are the ones with the green labels. The Majolica glazes, that we used are over on the left-hand side, and Majolica glazes are the ones where when you paint on it, it will not run. Keep in mind that most glazes, when they touch each other during the firing, they will run. Stoneware glazes also are located underneath the wear boards. Remember that those wear boards have the little cups, and then you just have to read the cup to see what glaze it is and then find that glaze on the shelf underneath. Okay, these glazes that are underneath the wear boards are the Coyote glazes, and the Coyote glazes are located also in the 5-gallon buckets. Those, or the 3-gallon buckets, those are the glazes that are dippable. Okay, and also over there. Now, when you go to glaze, make sure that if you're using stoneware glaze, you use a stoneware clay body, and earthenware clays would be earthenware glazes. Glaze labels will often show whether or not something is food safe. As you can see there, the knife and the fork. The Moroccan sand glazes that I have will say it in fine print. So if you look on the fine print, I know that's impossible for you to see right now, but it will say that it is safe for food. Now, all of the glazes will have an indication as to the color number, and the cone. Okay, if you're using an Amaco, the cone is very small, but it is in the fine print there. Depending on if it's stoneware or earthenware, it's going to be, say, cone 5 or cone 05 for low fire. The Coyotes, all will say it right on there, those are cone 6. I can fire cone 5 and cone 6 together in the same load. Also, it is also on the buckets of the Coyotes. When you open a glaze for the first time in the trimester, it's probably not very well mixed up. In fact, it might even look watery on top. Always make sure that when you select a glaze that you mix it up thoroughly first. Quite often, you can do that by using a clean paintbrush and vigorously mix it. You can see that this glaze has a little bit of a chunky quality to it, but you mix that thoroughly and that should work. I do not ever recommend shaking the glaze because it quite often will leak out the top. Okay, now this is a Coyote glaze. This one is a little bit thinner than a lot of our typical glazes, but this is a nice consistency for the Coyote. Just make sure it's evenly mixed. This Moroccan sand glaze is considerably thicker than the Coyote that I just used. When you pull out a Moroccan sand glaze, quite often it looks very, very thick down in there, but don't be discouraged. Give it a minute or two of thorough mixing and it will also be a nice, even consistency. The Moroccan sand glazes and the other typical stoneware glazes besides the Coyotes, they will look like a melted milkshake. The Coyotes sometimes tend to be a little bit thicker than that, but that is normal for that kind of glaze. I'm going to just mix this for a minute and I'll come back. Okay, Thorough mixing has this nice consistency now. I do make sure that I really kind of scrape down on the inside of the jar. I want to make sure that anything that is thick in there on the wall gets mixed up down in there. If you have a particularly stubborn glaze that maybe it's just way too thick, you can always use the hand mixer if you are unable to mix it thoroughly with the brush. So if I'm going to use the hand mixer, I hold the jar and kind of cover the opening while I go to use it. I make sure that I've scraped the sides on the inside with the beater, and then I push down on the button to eject it, and then of course clean this and put that away. Don't forget, if you run across a glazed tile that has diagonal lines or some unusual design on it, that means that there's something unusual about the application. Just ask if you don't understand. It will say on the label of the jar, but like in this case, this is Magnolica, and I had to put the LG11 white on it before I put the one coat of the glaze. And don't forget that every single one of my tiles has the color number written on there, and they will hang up appropriately on the shelf next to the glaze.